Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're about to start. We have our project manager, Joe Sealing, here this evening, and our architect from Flansburgh, Ken Kovacs. We'll be starting right away.
Thanks, Tim. So we have some, this will be is that loud? This is our seventh community forum on the feasibility study for the pre-K 12 project. We have some very exciting news to talk about tonight, both in terms of where we are with the MSBA process and also where we are with the overall design. And we've got some design imagery on how the building is beginning to shape up and look as it relates to the pre-K-12. We're very excited in the direction that we're going. I speak on behalf of the Permanent School Building Committee. We've been working very hard over these last maybe a year and a half or so, thereabouts, as we've undertaken this process, meeting just about every other week. And so let's start right into the presentation. So tonight we'll talk a little bit about the MSBA process and where we are. Remind ourselves of the need of the project and why we're undertaking this study. And talking a little bit about some of the costs for the various options which helped lead to the selection of the pre-K 12 option. And then really spend some good time looking at the current status of the overall design. The MSBA, I'm going to spend just a little bit of time on some of these upfront slides. You've seen them before. It's pretty much the same information that we've talked about over our 5-6 meetings. But the MSBA is really a good partner. The MSBA, Massachusetts School Building Authority, oversees all state school construction and reimburses communities for a certain percentage for each one of the projects. But we need to make sure that we follow the MSBA guidelines in the overall process. And so far, throughout the entire process, we have, and it's been reflected in various staff reviews, which have been very positive, as well as the recent MSBA Board of Directors vote approving the direction of the project and allowing us to be in the phase of the design that we are currently in. I want to touch a little bit about the past schedule. These first two phases, you'll recall we finished the preliminary design program last October. MSBA staff reviewed that set of documents. It was about a 1,000-page report and approved us and allowed us to proceed into the preliminary schematic report, or PSR phase, which mapping report that is complete as well. That ended with the Board of Directors, MSBA Board of Directors meeting on March 26th, in which they voted to approve unanimously the direction that we're proceeding in, that is the pre-K through 12 option. So what's ahead of us? We have the schematic design phase, which will be finished in the middle of June. And that phase really is all about defining the design of the project, both in terms of the site plan and the site layout, the floor plan and the floor plan layout, but also the exterior imagery and what does the building look like. We're just embarking on that phase now, and Ken has some very exciting images to show us all on where we are. So that will finish in June, beginning of June. We'll then meet back up with the MSBA board for July 30th board meeting. And that board meeting will be their approval of the overall project. So all the vetting that we do over this next few months, as far as further site investigation, further layout of the building, further design of the imagery, the definition of all the mechanical, and electrical, and plumbing systems within the building, all of that's going to come together in June, be presented to the MSBA Board of Directors on July 30th, for their vote and approval. At that time, that vote really allows us then to come back to you as a community in your normal special town meeting sequence, that is in the October-November timeframe of this year, 2014, to appropriate the overall project funding. So we're in a very exciting part of the project right now, coming off of a very successful MSBA board vote a few weeks ago. Just a few bullets to talk about. Mainly, we're here talking about the June submission to MSBA, the July 30th vote. Some key dates to remember with a successful vote will be in November of this year, October, November, town appropriation voting that would be held. That would release the architect to start commencing drawings. We'll be bidding the project so that the school is occupied and ready for occupying in summer of 2018. With that, we'll then demolish the existing building and finish all the site work around that area of the site for full project completion in the late fall of 2018. So let's remind ourselves why we're actually doing the study and what are the key reasons for it. The need. It's a long-term resolution, a long-term plan for the Holbrook schools. All three of your schools were built around the same time. They all have the same relative inefficiencies as it relates to systems, is their ability to support your educational program, and just the overall useful life of the facilities. They have served you very, very well, but they are now at a point when there's a significant investment that needs to happen in them. And is that investment going to work for the town in the long run to invest in those aged facilities, or to look towards a new facility that could provide a much longer useful life for you for your relative investment? That's where we really are now with the pre-K through 12 new school option. We certainly want to avoid the loss of high school accreditation. Accreditation is very, very important to you and your children. And we want to make sure that you provide educational spaces that meet the state guidelines. It's very important. MSBA has set up guidelines for the entire Commonwealth to make sure that as a minimum, you're providing the right types of spaces, the right size of spaces, the right quantity of spaces to suit your needs, to suit your educational program. First, the next item says it relates to your educational program to really reflect your forward thinking in your educational program. Make sure the buildings can accommodate that for 21st century education. Your facilities, built in the 50s, really don't address the needs and the teaching styles that are happening today and into the future, the 21st century educational thinking. And certainly schools that are safe, code compliant, and in places that Holbrook, you as a community, can be proud of. A little bit on the value of high school accreditation. It is very important for you. We want to make sure that your high school, which is currently on probation, and has been for quite some time due to the facilities, we address those and accommodate those with this new building project. So a little bit about the cost of the pre-K through 12. All of this has been developed in the overall report. All the information can be found online on the district's website, which will provide the address at the end of the presentation. But as you'll recall from our prior presentation, the pre-K through 12 option, which MSBA has approved, for us to proceed into the schematic design phase, the overall project cost was $101 million. After the MSBA's share, which they will be reimbursing the town share is $49.6 million, with an estimated tax impact of $743 per year. And the key thing to note, this takes care of all three of your schools. Now, these costs, as we're going through these next several months, will vary somewhat as the design is refined and the existing site conditions are engineered to the level that they need to be. But the price we expect to be generally around this range that we'll end up with in the summer. There's been some conversation as, you know, one of the options was a 6 through 12 option that was studied. And why not a 6 through 12 option? Because it really makes more financial sense to go with the pre-K through 12 option, because the 6 through 12 option does not address your elementary schools, your two elementary schools, which have significant issues amongst themselves. So if you add the cost of the 6 through 12 option, which is approximately $66 million, to an anticipated elementary school cost of 41, it's actually higher at the end of the day than the pre-K through 12. Another thing of note is that you wouldn't be doing the elementary schools at the same time as the pre-K through 12. So whenever you got to the point of doing your elementary schools, those costs would escalate. So you would see escalation for the $41 million, which would make that difference even higher. And then the other conversation that we wanted to make sure we had was one of the options that we studied was, what if you did nothing and just simply repaired the buildings? Yes, the cost would be lower. You wouldn't have MSBA reimbursement, so the full $37.4 million would be borne by the town. So if you equate that against the $49.6 million after state reimbursement for the pre-K through 12 option, it starts to make the no build or the renovation only option less economically viable. But then you also need to add in the elementary schools. So if you add in the $41.1 million, excuse me, on top of the 37, the cost of town becomes a lot more actually than your pre-K through 12 option. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Ken to lead us through a design discussion.
Great, thank you. So as Joel said, it's a really exciting time right now. We are in the next phase, beginning to really develop what this building looks like. And again, it's still early, but you're going to get a sense of how we've been developing the site, as well as the building, and then starting to look at the exterior of the building. So with that, I'll begin with the site design. Just for reference, we have South Franklin Street on the east side of the left side of the slide, north is to the top. The gray building is the new school, and that's located over your existing football field and other associated athletic fields. In this plan, the new athletic fields are going to be located on the southern portion of the site. And this new building has a continuous loop road around the entire campus. And off of that loop road, there's associated parking areas that are designated for different areas within the school. Some of the exciting areas we've been looking at in the design, I'll just begin with the athletic fields. We have a new athletic field that is for soccer as well as football. It has a 6-lane track around it with 8-lane skirting track. To the right of that is a new baseball field and then a new softball field. And we're going to develop this further to incorporate other track events as well. With the building, we see this building being developed as a campus. It's not one monolithic building. It's a building with the pre-K through 5, some community use buildings, and then the 6 through 12. And with the site, we begin to develop distinct entrances. So each entrance to the building will have an entry plaza, one for the pre-K 5, one for the 6 through 12, And they're connected by what we're referring to as the front lawn. That's that circular area of grass you see connecting one side to the other. We see pedestrian paths through here. It's a great area where kids and can hang out. Another way we're using landscape to define the schools and give them a unique feature is creating an arcade of trees with a unique planting of, could be ornamental grass, but the idea is to create this vegetation that can separate the schools even further. So when you arrive at the entrance, you feel like you're at the pre-K through 5, even though you're part of a greater whole. And so we're going to look at opportunities to use the landscape to also add an element to define these schools and give them unique identity. And just for reference, this is your existing, this is your existing school highlighted in gray. So what will happen is your existing school will remain fully occupied during the construction of the new school. And once the new school is complete, your existing school will be demolished and completion of the site work will occur. Going into vehicular circulation, there's a real advantage of creating this loop road around the campus. It provides a very safe route for vehicles. We want to keep them with clear, non-obstructive views of where they're going. It provides access for fire vehicles, police vehicles, and this is the main route through the campus, that blue road. And as I discussed earlier, off of this blue road will be associated parking lots for different areas of the school. And you'll enter off of South Franklin, a dedicated entrance, which is located to the north. You'll see around the building, and when you exit, there'll be a left and a right turn lane, and this will aid in reducing buildup on that main road. There's also a dedicated bus drop-off for the pre-K through 5 to accommodate up to 6 buses. Right here. We've also allocated an area for the upper school to accommodate the 6th grade bus, as well as buses for athletic events. And just looking at pedestrian movement, the two go hand in hand. We want to make sure that vehicles and pedestrians are safe on the campus. And so highlighted in red are all the pedestrian walkways. So along the loop road, there's sidewalks. We have the highlighted in the more dense red area are the entry plazas. We're showing connections from the parking areas with crosswalks to that main green, and there's circulation paths within that main green. So you begin to see a sense that these are treated as individual buildings, and we're creating the walkways and pathways within the landscape. And just for parking, currently there's over 300 dedicated parking spaces. And each one, we have the pre-K through 5 for teachers and staff. We have overflow for events, district office parking, student parking. And there's also, on top of the over 300 parking spaces, parking along the roadway for an additional 80 cars. So if there's a large event for the athletics or in a gymnasium or auditorium, you're covered on the amount of parking on this site. So let's look at the overall site, and now going into the way this building is organized. Again, it's organized as a campus. It's a collection of academic houses on this site, and that allows you to have the pre-K through 12. There's an academic house solely for pre-K through 12 with its own dedicated entrance. There's a 6 through 12 academic house with its own dedicated entrance, and then what we're calling the community house with its own entrance. And here, that's the field house, or that's the gymnasium, auditorium, library, and functions of the community will be drawn to within the school. And again, we've associated parking to access all those components. That red dashed line that you see in between these houses those are links, those are internal links, and that's how these pieces are connected. And it also is an advantage because that's where you can lock the buildings off. So during a community event, you can lock off the pre-K wing, you can lock off the 6 through 12, and that helps with supervision and security within the school. So now what I'd like to do is show you a detailed look at the floor plans. This is the first floor plan. In the lighter shade of blue, that's the pre-K through 5. Dedicated entrance. We have administration and guidance for control adjacent to the entrance. We have a cluster arrangement of the classroom. So it's no longer classrooms off of a corridor, but there's more interaction, more collaboration. The classrooms are surrounded by team spaces and collaborative spaces. And centered within this plan is the media center. We really see this as the heart of the pre-K through 5 school with the classrooms surrounding it. The pre-K through 5 has a dedicated cafeteria with a servery, as well as a stage for performances. The pre-K through 5, pre-K and 5 have a dedicated play area to the north, and the 2 through 5 will have a dedicated play area within the campus greens. The 6 through 12 wing, again, is very similar in its arrangement. Dedicated entrance with administration and guidance for control, and then you enter into the academic cluster of the classrooms surrounding team rooms, providing that level of interaction. That leads us to the community house. In here we have the main cafeteria, the auditorium, a dedicated entrance. We have an area that we're calling the STEAM cluster, and the STEM cluster. It's arts, it's a video lab, a band room, it's adjacent to science classrooms, and robotics. So this is a very exciting component of the building. It really focuses on 21st century learning to create that STEAM component. The district office is highlighted in the corner in purple with dedicated parking areas. And then we have our service area, electrical, mechanical, toilets, custodial for receiving. That's attached to a loading dock. And then with kitchen, and this kitchen is one kitchen in this building, but with 2 distinct serveries. So the pre-K and the upper school do not have to mix when they have lunch. They'll have 2 distinct serveries. And then they're separated again where that red dashed line is with a set of doors. And one thing I want to point out, off of this cafeteria space in the center building, that's a double height space. It's a large space that connects with a monumental stair and an elevator to the gymnasium. There's a gymnasium for the 6 through 12, and that abuts the gymnasium for the K through 5. And this is a great opportunity where the walls separating those 2 spaces can be opened up. And for flexibility, you have an even larger space. And at this level, there's access to fitness, the media center, and the back of the auditorium. The light shade, again, is the upper level of the pre-K through 5. These are general classrooms for 3 and 5. The media center in that core is a 2-story space. Again, you're always clustered around this media center. And going to the 6 through 12 classrooms, science labs, and team spaces. And so let's look at the plan. And now this is an exciting time because we begin to look at what could this building look like. And so we looked here down for cues. Materials within your building, we see wood, brick, accents of copper on bay windows, clapboard, and we don't want to mimic these styles, but we want to take what's familiar to your town and create something that's unique for this school. So this is a very early look at what this building could be. And we envisioned along this curve, we could see that that part of the building could be clad with copper, something that is timeless, it's refined, and it's the front of the school. You see from over the campus screens this curved copper element that's really providing a uniqueness to the school, and it's also a tool that helps us break down the scale of this building. It's a large building, it's around 216,000 square feet, and we need to use material and the massing to help distinguish the two schools, but also not make this seem like a large monolithic building. Beyond the copper, we see glass. We have a glass clear story, which is above the corridor. This is going to allow natural light to come in deep into the building, provide light for that cafeteria space, for the corridors, and those team rooms. We see an expansive glass outside of the cafeteria that will look onto the lawn. And again, you see the two entrances for the lower school and the upper school. And this is something we'll continue to develop and refine to provide an element that will be unique to those two schools. So we'll look at architecture here to perhaps break the scale down for the lower school and perhaps something that's a little more exciting for the upper school. So we'll use architectural elements to create that. The red color mass, that's the bulk of the academic classrooms, and we propose that to be brick. So we have the elegance and the softness of the copper and the glass, and then it's grounded with the permanence of brick. And that's about 70% of the exterior of the building. And so we see a very simple, rational design for a majority of the perimeter. And one thing to keep in mind, when you approach the site, the copper and the glass element is your predominant view. There's tall tree lines on the north and the east side of the site. So a few of these elevations I'm going to show you that are blind elevations. They're very important, but they're not as visually prominent. So this is a view looking south. You can see the athletic fields beyond. And this is a portion of the brick building that will be the pre-K through 5. That leads to an expansive glass. That's the pre-K through 5 cafeteria. And the larger mass is the field house, is the gymnasium space with the loading dock associated with it. And then this is another view. We're looking at the district office on the right side, the auditorium with the fly tower. This auditorium that's proposed here would have a proper fly tower with catwalks. And then we lead to the upper school classroom block. And so that's just a look at our first pass at establishing what these materials would be. We think it's very important to have not just one material, but often the copper and the brick and the glass really help define and break down the scale of this building. Again, it's a large building, and it's a tool we use to help with the scale, and also it's going to be used to give those two separate schools a unique identity. And here's a view of that lobby for the cafeteria space for the upper school, and this is a concept, but you can imagine the students sitting at the cafeteria. On the right side is a double-height wall of glass that's looking out to that front yard. Ample light coming into the space. It's a large space, but what's unique about this is the gymnasium, the fitness, the media center are located on the upper level with this monumental grand stair leading to it. So all this activity is very prominent. It's part of the everyday experience for all the students. And so we see a lot of opportunity that can happen within this space. And that sums up the design review of where we are right now. And community outreach, we encourage everyone who's interested to be part of the school, promote the school, and this will be loaded onto a website, and you can contact Karen at the email address listed below.
And Karen is with us tonight, and maybe she could just say a few words about how she's going to rally us all and get the information out there.
Okay, so Dr. Lally just sprung this on me right now. As far as having something to say, so I've been scribbling some junk down, but anyhow, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Karen Santorelli. I've lived in town for about 25 years, and my son attended all 3 public schools and graduated in 2013. Um, Graduated in 2013. So over the years, I've been involved in all sorts of ways in the schools, like as a room parent, elementary parent group, high school parent group, youth parent, whatever. So been around a lot, seen, a lot of what goes on in the building, what the problems are with the buildings, and also met a lot of the kids that have attended. And the kids are great, and they deserve better than what we're giving right now. So I just think that this new building isn't a want for the town, it's a need for the town. And I personally am taking this as like my next big project, and I know other people are too, to get this done and over with. I think it'd be awesome in a few years to be able to say, hey, I was at town meeting when they voted for that fantastic new building that my little neighbor is going to now, or whatever, the kids deserve it. So anyone who's interested in helping spread the word and, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends at the baseball field, maybe we'll end up sending out mailings or emails or whatever. We probably need to get organized somehow and figure out what we're gonna do. So come see me with your contact information, and then we'll figure out who's gonna do what, and hopefully get this done and over the once and for all.
With that, is there, I'd like to open up for any questions or comments? Yes?
I just had a question on can you comment, I see the 2 stories of the glass. We're in New England, and, our weather is unusual. And I'm wondering about the fuel efficiencies, heating efficiencies, when you see 2 stories that, architecturally look great, but I'm wondering about the heating of a system like that, and also its realistic applicability in a wintry, windy area.
It's very good. Yeah, we want to be conservative with the glass. We don't want to put glass all over the building. Glass technology today is far superior to what it was in the past. So there's thermal values associated with that. But another advantage is letting the kids have the natural light. It's great to have natural light. It's, especially with a big building like this, it's so important. But also, the lights will all be on sensors. And so at times, that cafeteria space may not even have its lights on. So there's a savings with the lights not going on. And that's one of the advantages of providing ample glass. And it's also, a tool, again, to distinguish each of the buildings, and it's something we'll consider using it appropriately.
And what about the heating issue, 2-story?
Yeah, the heating's just, that's a technical aspect. We always want to make sure that there's not condensation. We apply, the correct kind of heating across the face of the glass. But as far as a cost associated with providing more glass,
No, it's more about the heating itself. I've had some experience with the trial courts, for example, and they built these beautiful lobby areas that have high ceilings, and my understanding is their heating costs are large, and I'm sure that's going to come up, when people are going to ask about that. So I, like to put the questions out there that I'm trying to anticipate people might ask, and I'm sure one's going to ask, how much is this going to cost to heat?
right. I mean, that's something we study. There's energy models done with the building and the performance of the skin, so we'll study that further, how it relates to the heating system.
Is anyone going to look into solar energy? Is getting big these days. Is that going to be explored at all to help with the costs?
Yeah, the building will be designed with the infrastructure for the solar panels, but not the solar panels themselves. So all the wiring will be built in to the building, but not the panels themselves.
And that's mostly to do with the MSBA doesn't participate in reimbursing solar panels, but they do participate in developing the buildings so that they are solar ready. Yes, sir.
I know I got, practicing and stuff like that, and all the warm-ups and games and stuff like that.
So I'll just go back to the slide. The baseball and the softball have their outfields opposing each other, which will allow for that activity to happen, the practice.
Yeah.
So you can see there's a large green where the two fields are joining, and that would, allow the support for other activities that need to happen in that field's occupied.
But for like hypothetically, like a homecoming, they tend to do like a lot of games on the same day. So how would there be options to put like a separate soccer field in, or is that an option to keep it together? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of program on the site right now, and the only surplus space would be those two fields where they're overlapping. I mean, there's lines been done in the past, but that's an option.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to be greedy with questions. The second one is traffic flow around the building. Is that 2 lanes? Is it 1 lane? And how would that obstruct traffic coming in and out, dropping kids off and stuff?
So it's a one-way. So it's a one-way looping around the building, entering here, exiting here, and it'll be wide enough to allow cars to queue for parents to pick up and drop off, and still allow vehicles to pass, so they're not getting bunched up.
Great. Thank you.
Could you go back to the slide showing the gymnasium and talk a little more in detail about how the two gymnasiums are going to be kept separate? Because I know they're adjacent to each other, and that is a question I think a lot of people will ask. You have a gymnasium for upper school and lower school, and what's the separation?
Right. So they're in the same volume, but this faint line is how they will be divided, and it'll be a wall that's retractable. So the students won't interact with each other as long as that wall is intact. The pre-K through 5, they enter here in this vestibule area, and they're separated from the upper school. So when they enter the gymnasium, that's the limit of the gym. They're walled on 4 sides, and they have no interaction with the upper school. If there's an event and you need the flexibility, most likely not during school, then you could open up the wall. That's how we would separate the two. And then the upper school, from that large stair, you're in a lobby space with the elevator directly next to the gym, and you would just enter the gym directly from where it says lobby. Again, during school, that wall would be closed, most likely.
You said there would be one kitchen
Yes.
and 2 separate cafeterias, correct?
Yes. Right. We looked at options where there was remote serveries, but the food would still have to be prepared at one area and then carted down. And so we refined the plan to have one kitchen with all the cooking, refrigeration, with 2 distinct serveries that don't mix. So there's access directly from the upper school into a servery and access from the lower school into the servery. And the students don't have to interact with one another. But the kitchen, be economical and resourceful, is one kitchen, large enough to support the whole student body. You were next.
Yeah, I have a question on the athletic fields. With baseball season being in the spring and it's so wet, what's the possibility of getting artificial turf in the baseball fields?
I mean, there's always potential, it's cost. So currently we're exploring the cost impact of synthetic on the football and soccer right now. We haven't looked at what it would cost for the baseball.
Is there any way we can look at the cost of that as opposed to the cost of, you can play football in the mud, you can't play baseball in the mud.
Can't play soccer.
What's that?
Can't play soccer.
I think it's a little easier to kick a ball in the mud than to field a ball.
We'll bring that to the permanent school building committee for consideration at our next meeting.
Go back there. Yep.
was pointed out that the area by the football field, that there was a little incline there. My question deals with drainage, since plowing snow in the spring, water running down. And number two, where you have the baseball field, in that area there, historically has been wet. You have the wetlands close to it. What are you doing about drainage, proper drainage of the athletic fields, so we won't have games canceled just because they're sitting water?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, these fields are not going to be placed on the grade they currently are. The grade's going to be looked at. If it needs to raise, it'll be raised, but there's drainage solutions, strategies for both, just going back to the snow, you'd have to find dedicated areas for piling the snow, but the field and the track themselves will be designed to accommodate the drainage. It's not going to build up. It's not going to be a soupy mess out there. These are new fields, and the civil engineers will design them appropriately.
Not to be skeptical,
Yep.
but we've had problems in Holbrook with the field being built and there wasn't enough drainage, and it feels unplayable a lot of times. So therefore, my question to you is about the drainage, and I guarantee that that area is going to be drained well. Otherwise...
No, it's good to know. We'll keep an eye on when we look into the detail of how we're going to actually drain that field, and we'll pay close attention to it.
Question on that for main building, the security for being going between each section, how is that going to be controlled? Or are they locked doors, like you going from like K5 and then right back there?
Yep.
What will the flow be like, and how is it going to control the flow?
Yeah, so there'll be a set of doors
Yeah.
that will probably have a key fob, only for people who need them, and they'll be locked. And that's how that will operate.
But if you have, let's say you have some upper students that are going to, say, mentor, or this program that you can come place there in this kind of school, how will they get over, I guess? How's that going to work?
Probably have a buzz, and
I think we were planning that it would go into your entrance, the front
Yeah,
entrance.
that's-
Yeah, there's no crossing through.
Okay.
And they have to sign in, they have to make sure that the office knows they're in the building.
And the second question, recess space for the K2. I noticed it's a small play area, but I'm thinking, is that just more of a playground, or is there actually going to be space for the kids to play?
yeah, no, we're going to look at moving this away from the building a bit, perhaps putting it on the inner circle. It'll be larger. It'll be contained. A nice aspect of that is if there's a field event or just for community use, there'll be access also from the parking area. But it'll be larger to accommodate the school.
What do people see when they go in at the community entry? Because it kind of looks like they're just going into a hallway there outside the video room.
Yep, so you're going to walk in, and the way it's going right now, you're going to see the video, which could be an exciting space. It could be flash, you see what's going on. And then the auditorium entry will be right there. But it's from entering into that vestibule, you're at the beginning of that double height space. So you're going to see that activity that was in that rendering. You'll see the gymnasium, the stair, the auditorium, and the video lab.
Are you saying you can see into the video lab?
Oh, potentially, there could be an opening where you get to see what the kids are doing. But no, you're not walking into the back of a hallway. You're in a double height space, and those large volume spaces are just beyond. Everything's very visible.
And, I'm sorry, but can you also talk about, the decision, about the overall architectural style, it's, sort of square and modern compared to a lot of high schools in this area?
Compared to other high schools?
Yeah.
Okay. So right now, again, this is a good time to get into the design. That's what we're doing. As far as the overall organization of the building, that began to dictate how the wings occurred and how the community space occurred, because we're staying off the footprint of the existing
I'm talking
building.
about the look from
The
the
character?
outside, the flat roof, and, there are no gables, and
Yep.
it's different from a lot of the
Yep, so again, we're looking into what the design is, but a lot of the spaces, the big volume spaces, are not going to have gables on them. Very difficult, costly to do sloped roofs, especially on the field house, the auditorium, and just the organization of this classroom wing. But again, it's very early on. We're studying what the look of this building will be, and during the next steps, we're going to refine that. So the idea right now is to start with breaking down the scale of this large building and using the texture of material and just the softness of the curve. Currently, it's the curve that creates the softness, and the brick academic wings are more grounded and permanent, and they are more squared off, if you will. And that allows the curve to be a unique element for the school.
Again, I was just gonna, get back to Jeanette's first question. Would you go back to the slide with the cafeteria? Because that's kind of that entryway to the community portion, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So you'd have to.
So right in front of the stair would be the video lab. So when you enter in that entrance, you're in the two-story volume, and you're seeing all that activity, all those spaces.
Is this the only entrance into the building, coming off South Franklin Street? Have we looked at trying to get there through Kennedy or the old Fight Road, or is it too much between wetlands and too much?
Yeah, this is the main entrance. Other areas were explored.
Sorry, roads.
Other roads were explored. It's going through wetlands. It's very costly, but that was explored already.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of concern about the traffic flow and the time of day. Can you just explain again the traffic flow? And I believe there'll be different start times as well, and in terms of busing as well. Can you explain the procedure again, please?
Yeah, so there's staggered start times with the upper school, lower school by an hour. So right then, that already helps with getting to the site. The upper school faculty, staff, students will enter the site, they'll park, there'll be parents dropping off, and that activity will be finished by the time the lower school comes into the site. And there's enough of a length to provide for the queuing for parents to pick up. There's also areas for parents to park, and especially for pre-K and kindergarten, to park and walk their student into the school. The staggered start times is a big help with the site, and it's necessary during so many students at once.
I'm not saying the traffic, I'm just noticing something. What was the change from moving the in and out from where it is now? Because right now the in is on the south part, it's on the southern part, and the northern part is the out. Was there a reason for that change?
Well, it's always good practice to drop the students off on the right side. That's one of the elements, and then it's simply this is the best organization for approaching the site again the one way. Yes.
Will the building be wired to support technology throughout the entire thing, even if
Yeah.
the MSBA doesn't
Yes.
back this up for, okay? That would be something that would have to consider after the fact?
No. All that's included. All that's in. It's all built in. There's a whole technology component. We have a part of the design team only does technology. The wiring, the networking, the security, and that's what they're charged with, and that's part of the budget.
Which the PSBA absolutely supports technology.
Do you know if the classroom has smart boards?
It could, it depends on where it's going. A lot of technology uses the projectors, work projectors with the smart technology built into it, and so that's a conversation we still need to have.
I know you've talked about it quite a bit at the permanent school building committee meetings, but could you talk a little bit about the overall energy efficiency of the building and how that factors into the MSBA reimbursement?
Yeah, I mean, all the systems that we're building in here now, there's a baseline system, and then we look at how those systems may, how they create comfort and a payback But currently, right now, all the classrooms have what's called a displacement system. It's not air conditioning. It's a displacement that more or less dehumidifies the room, so the classrooms have a level of comfort. So mechanical systems, we're have to build these buildings to get the chips or the LEED credit. So it's already at a higher tier, where the mechanical and electrical systems have to come into play. So we have efficient systems built into the building, and also the envelope. The envelope now are substantial, just to meet code. The amount of insulation, roofing insulation. One big aspect was minimizing the footprint. It's a large building, but we've done our best to minimize the footprint, which reduces the heat island effect, which saves on energy. It's less air escaping and more hotter air coming into the building. So reducing the footprint is one of the first steps in taking to have an energy efficient building.
And the MSBA provides incentive for that. If you're LEED certified, which this building is striving to be, there's an additional 2% reimbursement, which has been factored in into the overall cost of the overall reimbursement. And such things as whether it's high efficiency boilers, high efficiency water heaters, as Ken said, along the perimeter of the classrooms, it'd be a light sensing system to be able to dim the outer banks of the lights so you're not using as much electricity. Certainly the displacement air ventilation system is a very, very efficient way of providing ventilated air for the building. So MSBA is really encouraging communities to design high energy efficient facilities.
Yes.
What's the plan for using the area where South School is and the JFK?
I can answer that right now. You have that?
Those would revert back to the town, and the disposition of those is to be determined at this point. But there's certainly an asset that the town has as it relates to either building the land or land. So with that, is there any more questions? Well, all right. So we'd like to thank you for attending. As always, the permanent school building committees meetings are open to the public. They're posted on the district's website as well as the town site. The meetings are generally every 2 weeks. So you're welcome to attend, as well as take a look at the district's website where all information that's been generated for the project has been posted, and it's very up to date. The school probably does a fantastic job at keeping all of the documentation current and relevant. So we encourage you to go there, and certainly if there's any questions, please reach out to the permanent school building committee. And thank you very much for attending tonight.